Feels like something big is about to happen. Let's look into that. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First off, a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button, commenting, sharing the videos, watching the videos is greatly, greatly appreciated. And if you've donated money through the super thanks, a huge thank you, or Venmo, or buy me a coffee, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's all greatly appreciated. Your generosity is humbling. Okay, so it is Sunday morning at about 5:30 or so in the morning. And when I woke up this morning, it just felt like we're on a precipice of something big. I think we've been feeling that for a while. I think we felt the energy shift in probably October, and then especially in November, and then it's continued in that trajectory. It seems like it's always bad news for the felon and disturbing news for the world as well, but it just seems like he's not getting away with this much stuff. It just feels like things have really changed. And, you know, the images that I'm getting are more closely related to his passing than anything else. And I talked about the dream that I had about Ivana, and I've had a few other kind of just really vivid images and really vivid audio messages as well. And this usually happens when something big's about to happen. So I thought, you know, I don't normally release videos on Sunday, but I felt compelled to do it. So I'm going to, this will come out later Sunday afternoon. I thought the best way to approach this is to just look at the United States over the next 6 months, and maybe we can get some inkling on what's going on. If you're new to the channel, generally when I have these feelings that something big's going to happen, something big happens. You know, the weekend that the Pope died, the weekend that we had the big floods in Texas and the floods in Alaska. So this doesn't feel like it's a menacing bad, though. This feels like it might be something that leads us in a positive direction, which is, you know, greatly needed. I think people are starting to regain hope, but then we see, you know, news from the Supreme Court and stuff like that, and it kind of gets us down. And, you know, I don't know that that's wrong or right. I think it's, we feel what we feel, and I think we should let ourselves feel the emotions that are coming to us. But I don't know that, you know, feelings aren't always grounded in reality, right? Just aren't. I mean, that's not true of just you or me. That's true of everybody on the planet. So, you know, even though we might have moments of anxiety or dread or fear, it doesn't mean that these things are going to happen. And, you know, every time I've looked at the U.S.'s future on a long-term basis, it's always very positive. It's, you know, yeah, the U.S. is kind of in the midst of having a, you know, really bad few years. But, you know, the world has been having a bad few years, too. You know, having an autocrat and a despot and, you know, a felon who's truly low IQ is hard to deal with. It's tough to keep that optimistic attitude when we look at things on the big level. However, if we're looking at things in our personal life, things are feeling a lot better. And usually once that starts to happen, it translates into bigger things. The Democrats will win the House in 2026. It does not matter what the Republicans try to do. In fact, the Republicans redrawing these maps are probably just going to end up giving Democrats more seats. That's the reality of it. Republicans know that. That's why in Indiana, for example, 16 of the House Republicans voted against the new map. It's not sure that it'll even pass the Senate on Monday, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on Indiana. But if it does pass, that's great news for the Democrats, and Republicans know it. It could seriously make a situation where Democrats sweep all 9 of Indiana's House districts if they pass this map, because no district is more than Republican plus 12 or 13. That's not safe enough in 2026. So, don't always buy what the news media is selling. They phrase things in ways as if they know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, and they don't. They just don't. So let's just take a look. I'm going to do the 6-month look for the U.S. We're going to start with December, so December through May, and just kind of see what's going on. See if we can't get some inklings on what to expect, the bigger things that are going to happen. I don't think the felon makes it to May, but let's see what the cards say. I just don't think he does. Timing's difficult. He's very scared of dying, which is why he's, never relaxed enough to let it happen. Not that we necessarily choose our exit plan, but people that aren't afraid of dying tend to not hang on as when they're chronically ill, which I'm pretty sure the felon is, and I think we'll find out about that. So I'm going to do one card for the 6 months, and I'm going to use 5 decks. I've done this several times on the channel. This is the before tarot, so this is kind of going to give us a glimpse as to what's happening kind of right before the month starts into the beginning of the month. We'll finish with the after tarot, which will transition us into the next month, and then we'll use the unfolding path tarot, just the regular Rider-Waite, and then the light seers tarot, and then this is the after tarot. So, okay, what do we need to know about the U.S. over the next 6 months? 5 of Cups is at the bottom here. I just noticed it. I don't always notice those, but that's about loss. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because I think that's how a lot of us feel. We are grieving in a sense for what we remember the country being. And, I think we're also going to experience a loss in terms of the person in the White House. But I think the shift is that there's now this call to action. And I think people have described it really well in the comments of the channel, which I read, by the way. I don't always get a chance to respond to them, but the No Kings protests, for example, being around like-minded people really encourages us. It gives us motivation to work hard. The Tennessee election should be super encouraging. I never thought she'd win. I thought she might get a little bit closer than she did. The energies were a little bit confusing. I always said if voter turnout was high, it wouldn't be a good sign for her. But if you think about it, she lost by, this is a Republican plus 22 district, and she lost by a little bit less than 9 points. Which if you just translate that, that means a Republican plus 13 district, the Democrat would have won. And Indiana's wanting to draw a map with essentially all districts being about Republican plus 13. I think the safest one's Republican plus 18. And all that would have taken is 4% of the people to change, or 4.5% of the people to change their mind and vote for the Democrat. This isn't a huge undertaking to swing an election from 9 points to a win. It's remarkable she came that close. This is interesting. In December, we get the Ten of Pentacles, legacies. Also inheritance. I think that is something that is on the mind of a lot of people. What is it we're leaving the next generation? And what was it we inherited from the previous generation as far as a country goes, for those of us in the United States? And if you're not in the United States, you're thinking the same thing, just not framed in terms of being in the United States. And, the truth is, the 1950s were not pretty for everybody. The 1960s weren't either. The 70s weren't great either. The 80s had its super big issues, of course, as well. But we've gotten progressively better. And even though it feels like we're regressing right now, and we definitely are regressing, the truth is most people have more freedoms than they would have had 30 years ago. That's just the truth. So, with the exception of women's health care rights, which that's a big step backwards by all means, but that'll get fixed eventually down the road. That'll get fixed. That doesn't make it right now. We need to work on that. But there are still states where there's reproductive health care. In January, we get the Strength card. It's almost like things are quiet in January. So the Strength card's about like quiet diplomacy. So I don't think that there's going to be big news from the new year into January. I think it's going to be fairly quiet. In February, we get the Devil card, toxicity, mis and disinformation, deliberately deceiving people. This, of course, will be the start of the real election campaigning, because we'll start to have primaries, and I'm not sure when the first primary is, either March or April, something probably like that. But the campaigns will be in full swing. The election will, of course, takes forever in the U.S., costs billions of dollars. But the thing about the deliberately lying to people that Republicans have been doing is nobody's buying it anymore. People just have to go to the grocery store to realize that food's more expensive. All you have to do is write that rent check every month, or whatever big expenses, the utility bill every month if you own a house, and well, if you rent too. But things are more expensive. They just are. So Republicans aren't going to be able to lie about these things. They have definitely ruined the economy, and the American people know it. It's really, really quite that simple. In March, we get new leadership. That's interesting. The Ace of Wands. And this would be at the end of February leading into March. Now, whether that actually happens at that point or the new leadership just starts to become more known is a different story. We'll hone in on that as we need to. So the Ace of Wands in March. And then we get the truth starting to be revealed in April with the Ace of Swords. I think this is really uncovering exactly what Republicans knew when they knew it about his health. I think this is also more stuff coming out about Epstein and all the people involved, in particular the Republican politicians that have managed to keep themselves out of the news. So this is good. These are big, healthy changes happening. And then we get confinement, the Eight of Swords in May. I do think people start getting indicted. I do think people start going to jail. Not from the administration, and no, there's no such thing as getting rid of the president. Read the Constitution if you so wish. There is no such thing as decertifying election. This is not a true thing. So that's not what this is about. What this is about is there being an accountability for wrongs being done, states arresting ICE agents who are acting inappropriately. That's what it feels like to me. It also feels like states really stepping up to take the role of the DOJ, because the DOJ, well, I think it gets slightly better after the felon goes, is still going to be quite corrupt. Because there's so many people that need to be fired and replaced, right? It's just the way it is. Underneath, we have the Knight of Swords. This time period is going to feel like it moves really quickly. The next 6 months are going to be very fast in retrospect. Now, most of the time, that's how time works, but during it, there are going to be periods where, of course, it feels quite slow and as if we're not making progress. But there's a very clear line of progress already starting to form here with the cards. So this is the Unfolding Path Tarot again, if you're interested. Knight of Cups, some messages coming forward, and the Queen of Cups, yeah. People are going to start to be more caring, more empathetic, because there are going to be a group of people that never realized how financially vulnerable they were until now. That's not everybody, by the way. I don't think the stock market crashes. I don't think anything like that happens. Maybe crypto keeps going down, but intellectually I know exactly what it is, but I still don't know what it is, if that makes sense. It's like there's just a slow progress over the next 6 months, which leads to the bigger progress over the summer, and then really significant changes happening after the 2026 election, which basically will be just a placeholder for 2 years until the Democrats take over in 28, or it'll be 29, but the election will be in 28. Okay, what do we need to know about the U.S. over the next 6 months? Please show us. What do we need to know about the U.S. over the next 6 months? Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of energy in the January, February into March range. And then it's like kind of a reckoning afterwards. We get the Nine of Wands, guardrails in December. That makes sense. We've talked about this. There are people that are going to keep the felon from doing really erratic things if he wants to do them. I don't see anything bad happening in terms of like really bad. Yes, bad things are going to happen, but nothing really bad. I don't think we're going to suddenly be launching intercontinental missiles or anything like that. I don't see that happening. And people are also putting guardrails around his health, just so that we don't understand him. January, the Hierophant here for the U.S. in January actually makes a lot of sense underneath strength. January is always a spiritual month because it's the first month of the year. We make resolutions. We, want to better our lives. And so that energy is going to be there just as a collective. And then I think it's really salient that the country kind of feels the same way. Now, of course, there's the Republicans that are going to oppose any sort of progress, but, the majority of people are wanting to move on. And then by the time we get to February, there's a little bit more of a stability feeling with the Queen of Pentacles. A little bit less chaos. And I think we all know what that means, but let's keep playing with the cards here and we'll see. We have wish fulfillment in April, the Nine of Cups, and in March. And then in April, we have this inevitability with the Three of Wands. It could also have to do with foreign affairs, maybe rebuilding some of that on a, somewhat superficial level, because I don't think it'll be anything super deep. But yeah, I think that's what's going on there. And then we get the Hanged Man in May underneath the Eight of Swords. And I think what we're waiting for is accountability. And we're gaining a new perspective of exactly how bad things were, not necessarily inside the government, but just inside these big power circles of rich and powerful people. Some people will be in the government, yes. Most won't. The Page of Wands, fiery messages underneath. So this all looks pretty good. Let's see, what do we need to know about the U.S. over the next 6 months, please? What can you show us? Can you show us about the U.S. over the next 6 months? It feels like there's a lot of energy around January into February into March. I think that first quarter is going to be interesting. I don't think it's negative. I don't think it's particularly positive for most people, but for some, yes. I think there's just a lot of energy, a lot of unknowns. I think this is probably where we're switching leadership. But let's see. What do we need to know? Okay. Okay, we get families, reunions, celebrations in December. This makes sense, right? It's the holiday season. The government will be on break. That's what people are going to be thinking about. Emotional messages coming forward, the Knight of Cups in January, and then we get logic and consistency in February. I actually think I do know what that means, but I want to go a little bit further. In March, we get the Seven of Pentacles, seeds being planted. It's almost like there's a foreshadowing of truth coming out. And maybe we've been feeling this foreshadowing for a while, but it just feels like that's what's there. And so by the time we get to April, we're ready for these big fiery type of messages of the Knight of Wands. And then when May comes, we get repayments of loans and debts. And I think this is people being exposed for, doing things they shouldn't be doing with respect to money and other things. And of course, this is just for entertainment. This is just a tarot reading. But, and underneath we have death. That doesn't surprise me at all. The dark cycle, it's not like it just ends, because cycles don't just end, right? It's not like a game of bowling where, the game's over and you start a new one. It's not like that. Cycles, they end, but it's a transition. Everything's transitional. But the cycle's definitely starting to end here. This really dark thing that we've been all experiencing. Okay, let's keep going. We need to know about the U.S. over the next 6 months. Do we need to know about the U.S. over the next 6 months? So this is the Light Seers Tarot if you're interested. Again, most of the energy feels like it's around here. I mean, big energy's over here, just of a different variety. I do think states start to like force some accountability. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I do think that the mis and disinformation campaigns in the elections will be handled. I'm not saying there won't be mis and disinformation, because there will. It's just people aren't going to fall for it the same way, because people know what their checking account looks like. That's really the thing that is going to keep it from working. December is a big crossroads towards the end of the month. Definitely be thinking about growth, intergenerational relationships, kids becoming adults, puppies becoming dogs in January. That's kind of consistent just with the energy of January in general, but I think there's more to it there. There's a trap type of feeling in February, the Eight of Swords, this feeling of confinement, of resolution, I guess, that, you know, things are going to be this way regardless of what we do at this point of time. We get the Two of Swords in March, you know, blind choices. We get this walking away from energy in April. And what are people walking away from? They're walking away from the people that are currently in power. You're going to see this in primaries too. There are people that are going to lose their primaries. Now that happens every election, but there are going to be big people that start to lose their primaries. And it's not just the more conservative Republicans losing to more extreme Republicans. It's going to work both ways. And we get the Wheel of Fortune in May. It's almost like we start to feel that things are possible again. And we get stability underneath the Queen of Pentacles. Okay, so this is the After Tarot. What can you tell us about the U.S. over the next 6 months? Can you tell us about the U.S. over the next 6 months? Just at the U.S. over the next 6 months. What can you tell us about the U.S. the next 6 months? Yeah, the Ten of Swords, like the completion of the year, the end of a dark cycle. 2026 will not be as bad as 2025 was. Or if you want to phrase it in a more optimistic way, 2026 will be better than 2025. In terms of everything. You know, I don't think the economy improves or anything like that, but I don't think it gets any worse either. I think it just kind of stagnates, but I think the crazy kind of stops. If something big happens in January, that's kind of what I was thinking. And, you know, we get victory in February. I think this is the felon is gone. Because this is how it's going to feel to the world once he's gone, is it's going to feel victorious. That does not mean the work stops, because it doesn't. the work actually just takes a new form as we move into this new leadership immediately in March. With the Six of Pentacles in March, there's going to be a lot of questions about how things were handled around Epstein, I feel. Like there's an end of a cycle in April. This is all very positive. I think what's ending is people in states in particular allowing corruption from the federal government. I do think states start arresting ICE agents, for example. States start arresting, congressmen and women if they've broken laws, right? I don't think there's malicious prosecutions or anything. I just think that's what changes. Like there's been these deep investigations going on for a while, and then we get the Hermit card, this isolation feeling. Underneath, we do have the Moon, which is volatility, and I think this is so important to remind. Progress is never linear. It doesn't just, like, things just don't improve. They get better, then they get worse, they get better, they get worse, they get better, they get worse, then they get better. That's the way things are going to happen. So in December, there's going to be a lot of questioning about what we're doing, what we're leaving the next generation. There's definitely guardrails in place to keep the felon from doing crazy things. Well, too crazy. Some crazy things will happen, but nothing devastating to the planet. Also, there's guardrails to keep him hidden from view. We gather families, reunions, celebrations. That makes sense. We get ready for the end of the cycle, the end being the end of the year, New Year's, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever it is you choose to celebrate, Hanukkah. There's crossroads here as well. And then the dark cycle basically starts to end. And this realization that 2026 will be better. And if you look at the cards, it's hard to kind of hold them all towards the camera. There's 3 10s here. It's a really good sign that we're reading on the right thing as the year comes to an end. Now, as we move into the new year, there's a quietness to it. It's like almost too quiet. It's like a little bit eerie. So, is what it feels like. But people are turning to, they're setting their resolutions, they're growing spiritually, they might even be seeking out new spiritual adventures, and expect some emotional messages, especially in relationship to intergenerational stuff. And then something really big happens at the end of January. It's big. Possibly the felon leaving. We start out in February with this toxicity, mis and disinformation. I feel like this is lies about his health. But stability is regained. People feel better. It's not that their stability is real, but it feels like there's stability. There's a logic and a consistency to things. That doesn't mean things are good. It just means things are predictable. And that's what I've been saying for a long time. Yes, there's a big realization from a subset of population that this is the way things work, and that there's, I don't think any of us want J.D. Vance to be president, but he's going to be. It's just the way it is. There's just what's going to happen. But there's a feeling of victory because the felon is gone. The new leadership takes place. This isn't just Vance. This is Vance appointing new cabinet members, firing cabinet members, or cabinet members resigning and then being replaced, however it falls. This is going to feel like a relief, especially to have people like Hegseth gone and Bondi gone. I think it feels like a relief. The seeds are being planted that there was a lot of corruption going on. It's still behind the blindfold. We still don't know exactly what it is. We will know that it does involve a little bit of Epstein information. And then in May, the truth slowly gets pulled out. I'm sorry, not May, April. The truth slowly comes out particularly about the felon's health. It's inevitable that it was going to happen. It will be concerning. We will find out that it was worse than we thought. And this will cause more people to turn their back on the Republican Party. And it further ends this cycle in the sense of it'll almost be known to some extent, or at least to the experts, that the Republicans have no chance of winning the House in 26 by this time, and have a decent chance of losing the Senate as well. We'll look at that, of course, more closely. I do think people start to be prosecuted, maybe from the administration, but I just think it's people involving around Epstein type of activities. I think it's states that do it. I don't think it's the DOJ. I think we're waiting, the hanged man, to get more information about corruption and money exchanging hands for favors, particularly with respect to the felon. And, but there's all of a sudden there's this realization that, we kind of control our own destiny with the Wheel of Fortune. And I think that makes us quite introspective. I like that energy for us. So just to kind of recap, I think, December and then the beginning of January are quite quiet. The end of December, I should say, end of January, feel quite quiet, but it does feel like things are changing. I think something big happens in January or February, and we end up with new leadership around, February or March. And not just a new president, but new cabinet officials. I do think there's some prosecuting of wrongdoing happening that is going to shock some people, in particular Republicans. So, yeah, I think all in all, I think it's going to be an okay next 6 months. I'm not saying it's going to be great. I'm not saying it's not going to have its downs. It's going to have some ups, it's going to have some downs, but overall the trajectory is leading towards something better. And I think that's important to know. So, all right, thank you for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.